It's the end of another year. 2023 finished, 2024 coming quickly. This is always the time of year where I start to reflect on things, get a little bit nostalgic, and reflect on what I've learned throughout the year. So let's have a talk. Boop. I think one of the main things I've learned is getting older. Drink plenty of water. You just need to drink water. Kind of becomes a second job. If we've never met before, my name is Jeremy. I own commercial property where I house a recording studio, and I have for going on 12 years now. It seems weird when every year there's one more digit there. That happens quick. I work with a lot of different kinds of people, a lot of different kinds of bands, and I also do this YouTube thing, which has been a wild ride, to say the least, and I wholly appreciate all of you who stick around to watch videos like this. It seems like such a niche thing, working in and around recording studios, working with bands. We're creating music, being creatives. There's a lot to unpack there. Not just that you can have careers in this, but that there's enough people who either have or want careers in this that there's entire channels surrounding this stuff. Mine being one of them, which is bonkers to think about. If I think about one of the main things that I've learned over this last year, it's that confidence plays an enormous role in this whole thing. That's something that I've always known. Even when I'm subconsciously making decisions about artists, their own confidence comes into play about who I'm willing to work with. That has kind of been the whole thing this year for me. If you guys watching the channel for a while, you'll know that that's something I've struggled with a lot. Something a lot of us struggle with a lot. You're constantly wondering if you're a fraud. And the same thing happens with our clients, the artists that we work with, the bands that come in here. There are those handful of individuals who are way overly confident for what they're doing, and I think we've seen that. That is equally not fun to work with. But on the other hand, having somebody who is just so talented, who has no belief in themselves, is equally soul-crushing. Almost to the point of heartbreaking, because I think about one artist that I work with in particular, and she's incredible. Her voice is unique. Her songwriting style is really good. Just raw talent. And this girl does not believe in herself at all. And despite my best efforts at pushing her, because even that's a weird relationship, right? I'm the producer, I'm the studio owner, I'm the one who's gonna make money if she's here. So that's always a weird line to ride in figuring out how to do that in a constructive way for the artist. But watching her progression, she's an artist that I really think would do so well if she put work in. And that's not to say she's not hardworking. She's absolutely hardworking, but she's hardworking in all the other aspects of her life. She really doesn't have a career as an artist as it stands. I realize I'm talking about one artist in particular, but I think this stands with just about any artist that we work with. If they don't believe in themselves to put themselves out there, just pushing your music in any aspect, there's a crippling anxiety roadblock there. And I get it. It's stuff that I've dealt with before. Self-confidence and self-awareness is such a huge piece of future success with an artist, and all of this is subjective, right? There's going to be somebody who makes it on complete luck. There's going to be somebody who makes it with little to no work. Everybody makes it on a different level. But what I found in how I work with those individuals is I end up doing so much because I believe in what's happening. And this is where it gets really tough to ride, right? I believe in what's happening there. I see the talent. I want to foster that. I want to pursue that. I have no financial interest in seeing that person succeed beyond the fact that if they were to succeed, they would come back and record more. It's not like I own their material. It's not like I'm taking points. In some cases that may happen. In these particular cases, that is not something that I'm doing. They're working with such small budgets that I would rather just get them out there, get them successful, and watch that bud into something that you could really then come on and take on. That's the piece of it that excites me, that initial stages of a career. There's so much creativity to be had there. where you're figuring out somebody's sound. Even they're trying to figure out what they're trying to say, and these two things are coming together to create this ball of like anxious energy, like a lot of times in a good way, where it's almost like a new relationship, but it's not romantic, it's musical, where you get like this anxious excitedness. You're not really sure where all this is going, but there's all these energies, and these two things are coinciding with you're trying to find out what the sound is, and they're trying to figure out what they're trying to say to their audience. And that point is really exciting when you do it right. And I think in the moment, you never really know if you're doing it right. It's only something you can see in hindsight, like how do they feel about it? And there's even those times where in the room, you think you're doing it right. The artist is all about it, it's happening. And then when they get some time to step back and look at it, they get in their head. They fall into that lack of self-confidence and this constant questioning of their own struggles of, are they worth what's happening? And then there's a self-destructive spiral into perfectionism, and before you know it, the artist hates everything you've done and everything that they've done, and you're back at the drawing board again. When a project gets to that point, it's really hard to buy in again. Once you've experienced all this like crazy fulfilling stuff of creating something really good that you believe in, and honestly, you thought the artist was into at the moment. Because nothing happens without their permission in the moment, especially when there's players involved and there's money happening in the room every hour. Like there's constant check-ins. Is this where you want to go? Is this the sound that you're trying to hit? What are you trying to say in this moment? The rub happens when they get some time to themselves and they realize, like, I know I actually want to say something else. And that is where confidence in knowing what they want out of themselves, knowing who they are, knowing what they're trying to say, knowing what they're trying to convey is paramount, not just for them, but for you as an engineer and a producer. Because whether we like it or not, this is a very emotional job. There are those gigs where you're doing something to get paid and it's very transactional, but for the most part, working with musicians and working with artists, it's very emotionally taxing. There's a lot happening there. There's a lot of like personal involvement. And that is honestly a good thing. That's where we get fulfillment. That's why this job is cool. It's that form of art, that form of self-expression, even when working with somebody else's material. That's why they're coming to you as a producer a lot of the time, because they value your views in that arena as it pertains to their own music. And the really sucky part about it is I'm realizing that I have to kind of put those artists, I have to put them at an arm's length. As much as I want to see that stuff come to fruition, I can't force their hand. That would feel really like used car salesman-y to be like, no, you're good, come in, spend more studio time. I've even gone as far as to instruct those people to go to other studios, figure out how other people work. Even if it's not with me, do something, figure out what you're trying to say. See this through somebody else's lens, and then evaluate, am I the right person to be working with you? Because if you let those relationships go too far, you start eating into time, and time is money. And when you're talking about owning your own business and doing this as a business, because yes, although it is creative and it is fulfilling, it has to operate as a business. You have to approach this thing with a mindset of being successful, because if you're not successful, the artists that you work with, you're not going to be able to provide them a useful service. So all of this has to work. That's part of creating a healthy music economy wherever you are. Like, you have to be sustainable so that your artist can be sustainable. So I've started looking and having those conversations early, really trying to evaluate somebody. How well do you know yourself? How well do you know your music? What exactly are you trying to say? Because if somebody flakes at the end of a project and these months of work and these months of being creatively involved in this one thing just don't get shown to the world because now that person can't stand up to their own anxiety, which is that's a real problem. That's a real thing. And it's something that they have to be able to work through on their own. So it's not something that I'm going to push, but I have to be careful. We have to be careful. It's not something I've fully figured out yet. You know it when you see it. with someone on both ends of the spectrum, when they are very self-confident and this is going to go well, or when they aren't and this is going to be self-destructive. I'm not even saying I'm not going to work with those individuals going forward, but even recognizing that risk and deciding for yourself if you want to put in the effort and the time, knowing that it is kind of a risk. Because what I can tell you, nothing will make you question your own confidence than working with someone who questions their confidence. Because then you're thinking every decision you've made up to this point is wrong. Now, the thing that I will say, right alongside projects like this, I could have one project going for this whole amount of time and we're constantly questioning back and forth, and then on this other side, here's all these other projects that are getting finished and put out the door and released and re-released, and now they're coming back for another project. All the while, this thing's trucking along and we're really getting nowhere. Have you encountered artists like this? I'm genuinely curious. What have you done in situations like this? Have you just taken it as a loss and moved on? What are some coping mechanisms that you've kind of worked through, or strategies that you've employed that have worked working with artists like that? Because we are working with artists, highly volatile individuals, and that's what makes them so fun to work with. So I don't want to downplay that. I don't want to make it seem like I'm bad-mouthing any artist, but it is something, there's a balance to it. Even knowing what that risk is and knowing if you're willing or in the right place in your own career to be able to take a risk on a project like that. There's a few more of these end of the year discussions coming up, so if you like this, hit the like button. If you're into this video, I suggest you watch this video where we talk about Dunning-Kruger effect and all the things involved in this crazy career that we do, but we all love, and the struggles that I think most of us come up against at some point in our career. I'm Resident Loser Jeremy. I'll see you guys in the next one.